Welcome to Ministry in Motion, where we explore best practices for your ministry in the 21st century. Whether you're a pastor, an elder, or a volunteer in your local church, Ministry in Motion is all about how to do ministry in your local church. Our topic today is effective boards and committees for your church, and this is actually part 2 of a very special series, and our guest today is Dr. Lowell Cooper. Lowell, thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for this second part on making church boards and committees effective. Lowell, one of the important things is making a board or a committee a safe place for people to talk. What goes into that? How do you make that committee a safe place for somebody to talk and to express their opinion?
First of all, I think I would say that of all the commandments about board and committee meetings, boards and committees, this would be the first one. Make it a safe place to talk. I used to think that that's the responsibility of the leader, the person who serves as the chair. But I've come to the conclusion that that's an obligation that rests upon everyone, because any one person can make the place unsafe to talk just by a highly emotionalized comment or an expression that disrespects the viewpoint of another. So I think, first of all, the group has to somehow have a commitment to each other that we will respect each other's viewpoints. And we will value the comments of any person. So often, I suppose I've been participant in it too, but I've heard of people who, after the meeting, will talk. People will talk. Mm-hmm. But so often, the freedom to talk is more in the hallway after the meeting than in the place of meeting. And so there needs to be a deliberate kind of an agreement, a pact between committee members, that we will protect this meeting place, this meeting space, as a place where we can talk openly, we can talk candidly, without feeling of being under threat or under some denunciation by someone else. I think that's incredibly important to getting to good decisions.
Yeah.
I think research bears out the fact that the most successful boards are the most contentious.
Really?
That sounds strange, and that's a bit discomforting to a person who is a leader, to a chairperson, because you never know when a meeting is going to get beyond your ability to contain it and to provide effective leadership.
That does sound threatening, because a contentious type of group or committee, there's emotions that are stirred with that.
But I think it's a certain kind of contentiousness.
Right.
It's not the contentiousness that exists between people. Mm-hmm. It's a contentiousness that what should I say, looks upon it as an obligation to explore options.
Okay.
And an obligation to challenge assumptions. Mm-hmm. An obligation to critically look at a proposal. It's that kind of contentiousness, not that which would be between people.
Yeah. I think in your earlier comments you made reference to 2 key words that really struck me. One was respect and candor. And I think that they need to come hand in hand to the committee, don't they?
It's very difficult, I think, at times to know how to express dissent and not have it become personal. You may advance a certain viewpoint, and I say, "Oh, that's a crazy idea."
Yeah.
I have just attacked you. I haven't attacked your idea.
Yeah.
But there is a way that I think board and committee members can learn in how to exhibit appropriate dissent. And I think one of the best ways is to ask questions.
Okay.
Instead of to make make declarations about the value of an idea, it might be best to ask a question. What if we looked at this matter from this viewpoint? You know, that's non-threatening.
Right, yes.
In fact, it's inviting the members of a group to take a fresh look at things.
Right.
That in itself is a kind of dissent, because we are looking at the obligation to challenge assumptions, but not to do so in an offensive way.
Yeah. And so it's really highlighting the key point that's under discussion rather than the person, and shining the lights on that.
Indeed.
From multiple angles. Yeah.
Indeed. I think it's possible to intimidate people so that a meeting place is not safe to discuss. There are some people who think fast and talk fast. Mm-hmm. There are others who think more slowly, more analytically, and express themselves more slowly. And these people can easily be marginalized in a committee meeting by those who think fast and talk fast. I think it's the role of the leader in a meeting to make sure that people have opportunity to speak, in addition to the safety in which they would express an opinion.
Yeah. Let me throw one up to you from left field. A person who doesn't think so quickly, but is analytically, the meeting is finished, and then a major thing dawns upon that member of the committee or the group. What should they do? The meeting's finished and it's over, but this is a significant thing that has occurred to them. Is there anything that they should do? What would you counsel a person to do?
Well, if there's a new piece of information, or a new kind of insight, or a new threat to the decision of the committee, I think that needs to be expressed. Mm-hmm. A person doesn't need to be, absolutely silent after a meeting.
Right.
Particularly if there is information that bears on the validity of a decision. But I come back to the place of the meeting, first of all, and I have seen this practiced by those that I have considered as excellent chairpersons. Mm-hmm. When they sense that not everybody has had a chance to speak. Let's say, a lot of people have spoken in the meeting, but here we're coming to decision point, and 2 or 3 people haven't spoken. And the chairperson addresses those individuals by asking a question. Is there anything that you might be seeing that we have not addressed?
That's a good question, isn't it?
And it's an invitation for a person to speak without contradicting somebody, or without getting into the tension of discussion. But it's an invitation to participate.
Yeah.
And I think when that is done, a person feels respected, and certainly has an opportunity to bring anything that may come through this slow analysis of a question.
Right. Thanks very much, Lowell. We'd like to come back, and I'd like to specifically address the issues of conflict of interest within a committee as well, and how we can manage that. So stay with us. We'll be right back with more of Ministry in Motion. Welcome back to Ministry in Motion. Our topic today is effective boards and committees for your church, and this is actually part 2 of a very special series, and our guest is Lowell Cooper. Now, Lowell, conflict of interest in a committee can have devastating consequences and results. How do we manage that, and how do we do it in a fair and equitable way?
Well, I would think that in institutions or large organizations where there are governing boards, etc., there's usually a policy about declaring conflict of interest potentials.
Right.
And then there's a process for dealing with that. Mm-hmm. I suppose on a local church we do that much more informally. And it is still important that a board or a committee realize the potential that a conflict of interest can play. And it's good to have a discussion about these. I would think this is part of the orientation to a church board or to a church committee is to openly talk about the issue of conflict of interest and how we will deal with that, how we should deal with that when it arises, because it is possible that any one of us might be in a conflict of interest situation, and it's appropriate for the group to decide the legitimacy and how to handle that.
Right, okay. That's excellent, thanks. Now, most of our viewers won't belong to large congregations. Most of our viewers, and in fact, most members of churches are actually members of smaller churches. How do we put together a well-functioning board when there are limited human resources within the local church?
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
I suppose many a pastor would be asking that. What do I do in my circumstances? You know, all this theory about having some of the design initiatives to make better groups or better committees and boards, and some of the social dynamics, that's important. But how do I do it? I think first of all, I would say take an inventory of the assets that you have.
Okay.
You know, just
unpack that for us. What do you mean, an inventory of the assets?
Well, I would say look at the members of my church. Look at the experience they have, the education, the qualifications, the skills, and realize that they're not all the same. There is a variety in the church. And some of the skill, for instance, in the areas of technology, some of the greatest skills will be among the young people.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so often, it's easy to overlook some people in the church. So I would say identify the expertise that you have in the congregation and use that expertise. If there are areas where you don't have expertise, I think it's very appropriate to invite into the board meeting or the committee meeting people who do have some expertise.
Okay.
They can participate on an invitee basis. It doesn't need to be on a membership and voting basis. But you are supplementing the expertise of the group with external expertise to help you in reaching a decision.
Right, okay.
But I think also, as a pastor of a small congregation, I would not want to be content if I see deficiencies. No. I think it would be wise for a pastor to do some intentional board training or intentional committee membership training, or even to have the church sponsor somebody to go and get some special area of information if it's going to make a huge difference in the ability of the group to deal with the decision making.
Right.
I think that's part of the life of leadership, is to develop others.
Yeah.
It may not be for an immediate use, but it will be valuable sometime down the road.
Yeah. I like your idea of the training and growing people. Because that will be around for some time to come, won't it?
Oh, indeed.
And the benefit to the local church.
It bears fruit in the long run. I mean, we may not see it immediately, but ultimately we are growing the church in a dimension that it also needs to grow.
Can you think of an example of where a pastor has specifically grown a member and some of the benefits that you've seen over the years?
Oh my. I suppose that I would think of a case where an individual, a member of the board, was specifically requested and provision made, some financial provision, it wasn't a great deal, to get some training about the public address system in the church, the sound system in the church. And this was a very valuable investment by someone who had some proficiency, but needed to have that expanded a bit, because there was really no one else in the church to do that. And it became a huge asset to the church.
Okay. Now, one of the options that's becoming more and more available is electronic attendance at boards
the
and
technology.
committees. With technology and so forth, people being Skyped in,
Teleconferencing.
and that type of thing. Is that helpful?
I've had some experience with that. I guess my assessment of the experience is that these, what we call technology meetings, can fill a purpose. I think they work best when the decisions are fairly simple. They're not multifaceted and they're not contentious.
Mm-hmm.
Then a teleconference meeting, I think, is fine. I think anyone would discover some of the limitations of teleconferencing or even video conferencing where there are complex decisions to be made. There's a certain amount of body language that is expressed in a room when a group is working on a problem. You can't always detect that. A chairperson can't always detect that in a teleconference, obviously, because you can't see.
Exactly.
And in a video conference, you may not have enough clarity of detail, particularly if many people are participating in a video conference and you only have a picture of the whole group from some distance. So I think, technology offers some real possibilities, but I don't think, at least I'm not ready to shift into that kind of a mode for very, very significant decision making. It works better in the room.
Yeah. Point well made. Lowell, I'd like to come back and explore and summarise, because we're drawing to the conclusion now of this two-part series, making our church boards and committees more effective in our local church, and just putting together some key bullet points that we can take home from this time together.
We'll work with you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more of Ministry in Motion. Welcome back to Ministry in Motion. We're drawing to the conclusion of a special two-part series on making church boards and committees effective in your local church. Our guest has been Dr. Lowell Cooper. Now, Lowell, we just want to draw this to a conclusion. What are some of the key take-home points that we can take from this? There's one word that is resonating with me at the moment, and that is the importance of trust in that committee. Just explore with us once again, trust and the significance of it.
Well, I think you've captured a good word there. I think trust functions far beyond the boardroom or the committee room. And that is in a voluntary organization, and the church is a voluntary organization. I mean, nobody said, I have to do this or I have to do that. Every member participates volitionally, and good committee or board processes build trust in the organization, first of all. And I think in a voluntary organization, trust is the most important resource there is. We talk about the spiritual resources, that God provides, certainly, but I'm thinking of the human resources. Trust is more important than money. Trust is more important than property, authority, or whatever. Where trust exists, other resources come into play. Where trust is lacking, other resources will diminish. So I think this whole topic about effective boards and committees is important because it's a trust-building exercise in the life of a congregation.
Yeah. In many respects, it's a symptom too, isn't it? It indicates that the health, the social well-being and so forth, and the spiritual dimension of the church as well.
Indeed.
Yeah. So trust is important. And another word that really came across for me, Lowell, was growth. That a church isn't locked into the quality of the boards and committees that they have at the moment. That quality can grow exponentially.
And I think the initiative for growth can be taken by the group itself. It isn't just the responsibility of the pastor to do this. I think I think the members of a church board or a church committee can be inspired to want to be excellent.
Yeah.
In everything they do. I mean, excellence is a characteristic of everything that God does.
Yeah.
And I think as God's children in this world, our motivation for excellence is not out of competition or rivalry. Our motivation to excellence is because that's the way God is.
Exactly.
And so this motivation to grow in our ability to function as a group, in our ability to expand our information, and to develop each other, I think is a huge benefit to the life of a church.
Yeah. And to me, that grows out of an awareness of the big picture, the vision, the mission of the church. This isn't some club or country club or something that we're just comfortable members of and we just want good governance and that type of thing. But this has a purpose. And I would say the most significant purpose on planet Earth at this time.
Absolutely.
Being the body of Christ in that local community and making a difference.
I think in part one of the program, we talked about some of the design, some of the physical steps that one can do to contribute to an effective meeting. And we started this program talking about social dynamics. I think keeping those two ideas together, that there are some organizational, structural elements that we can look at in order to have a good meeting. There are also social dynamics. You have to work on them both, because if you try to emphasize one aspect but the other is weak, it's going to diminish the effectiveness of a meeting.
Right, yeah. So what happens between the start and conclusion of the meeting is important, but the larger dynamic that happens with that committee, with that board, outside of those meeting times is also very significant as well.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Any group that meets needs to understand its place in the larger picture of things. That way it will be able to reference its decisions to other decisions that other bodies make, be it the larger church, other congregations in the denomination, or other committees in the church. So the understanding of what is the mission of this church is absolutely critical. It's like going on a journey. We need to know the destination in order to figure out what direction to go. We may need to change direction from time to time because of conditions, but the purpose of the journey is always clear. And a board or a committee has to have that in mind to function effectively.
Exactly. Lowell, thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you, it's been a privilege.
The insights from your experience, your understanding of the complexity, and not only what happens within the board, but outside of it, working with major decisions that have significant ramifications.
We continue to learn.
Exactly.
It's a learning experience for all of us.
Exactly. But to me, each board can improve. We're not locked in and stuck at a certain level. There is growth and potential there.
And I think I think each board or committee needs to sense that we're responsible for our improvement.
Yeah.
It's not somebody else, who comes in, tells us we're wrong or we're bad or we're ineffective or something. We can take the initiative to do better.
Exactly. Thank you. And thanks for joining us for another program of Ministry in Motion. Visit our website for more resources, ministryinmotion.tv. But until next time, may God richly bless your ministry.